Support for NPR comes from Novartis, committed to creating new and innovative medicines. Novartis, think what's possible.
Today, in our series Beginnings, we look at a problem that often goes unrecognized or ignored after women give birth. Surveys show that 1 in 7 new mothers in the U.S. goes through a prolonged period of overwhelming depression or anxiety. It's not just a phenomenon of Western societies. Postpartum depression occurs in the developing world, too. Joanne Soberna reports on how 2 women, one in the U.S. and one in Uganda, dealt with their depression and how the stigma can keep women from seeking proper treatment.
Heidi Koss is in her kitchen just outside Seattle making banana bread. Her 10-year-old daughter Bronwyn is working on a crafts project. 16-year-old Alora is watching TV. It's getting on 6 p.m.
So, Alora, what are you feeling like for dinner? We've got leftover duck.
After Alora was born, Koss got hit hard by postpartum depression.
I would say about 2 weeks into it, I started feeling the blues at first, and then I started crying a lot every day, feeling more and more depressed, having a harder time getting out of bed.
Koss was intensely anxious about her baby. She worried obsessively that she might hurt her. She had terrible nightmares. One time her husband had to stop her from jumping out a 3rd-floor window. Things were no better when Bronwyn was born.
With my second daughter, when my symptoms kicked in, I felt nothing towards my baby. It was as if one day I woke up and I didn't care about her. I would look at her and I felt no feelings of bonding or attachment. I didn't care.
This is the tragedy of postpartum depression. It isn't the way things are supposed to be. Women may have persistent sleep disturbances, a lack of interest in the world, dramatic changes in weight, and extreme anxiety. Symptoms vary in severity. Koss's were severe.
I would envision hurting her when she was crying inconsolably, and there was pretty much nothing I could do. If I tried everything to soothe her, I would visualize smothering her with a pillow. I would visualize smacking her head against the wall until she was unconscious and couldn't make a noise. Horrible thoughts that I was terrified by and horribly ashamed of.
It was clear to Koss that this was not what people call the baby blues. Those come on a few days after birth and are gone by day 10. Postpartum depression is different. It appears within a month of birth and remains for months before lifting. No one knows exactly what causes it. Researchers suspect some combination of hormones, stress, and genetics. Psychiatrist Catherine Wisner of the University of Pittsburgh says it damages not only the mother, but the baby, too.
The mother's much less able to pick up the baby's cues, respond to the baby, comfort the baby, because she's having a lot of difficulty comforting herself.
Several studies have shown that children of mothers who have postpartum depression are more prone to behavior problems and are less successful in school, especially if the mothers go for a long time without treatment. Wisner says it's not unusual for postpartum depression to go unrecognized and untreated because the pressures on women to be normal can be great.
This beautiful baby is in the arms of a smiling mother who's just delighted. That's what we as a society want to see. So to walk into your obstetrician's office and break down crying or say you don't feel the way that society expects you to is a real burden.
These societal pressures are not just a factor in the U.S. Postpartum depression happens everywhere, even though some Westerners dismiss depression as a luxury of rich societies. Here in a rural village in Uganda, down a bumpy red clay road miles from the highway, 30-year-old Dorothy Mwasiga had postpartum depression after the birth of each of her 3 babies.
That every time I give birth, I get it, and this is the 3rd time I'm getting it.
She would get overwhelmed with anxiety, not wanting to let anyone touch her baby, not wanting to sleep because someone might take her baby. She had the same diagnosis as Heidi Koss in Seattle. But because of the stigma a label like depression carries in Mwasiga's small village, it's called something else, the worries. Her health officer, Emmanuel Masumba, explains.
In Africa, depression is not easy to explain to someone that you have a disease called depression, as it is in America. I told her we are treating the worries and trying to reassure her that all will be well when she takes this medication.
He says if he told her she had depression, she might be shunned by people in her community, the same people who helped her take care of her babies when she was sick.
Kale kati ndaba nga
Now I see that I love my baby and I look after the baby.
ng'oba bayinza omutwala.
But when I get sick, I don't want other people to touch my baby. I think they're going to take away my baby.
She credits her community, her religious faith, and the counseling and antidepressants from the health officer for getting her through. Catherine Wisner says postpartum depression can be treated successfully about half the time with medication or counseling. It's getting the diagnosis in the first place that's the problem. Women are sometimes too embarrassed to admit they're depressed, and the healthcare system isn't always set up to recognize it.
And there are some physicians who tell me that they don't see postpartum depression in their practices. And my guess is that's right, they don't see it.
That's because they're not looking, she says, and they feel out of their league treating it, and getting reimbursed for it is complicated. Koss says that when she complained to her obstetrician after her first daughter was born, he said there wasn't much he could do for her.
I am angry that my OB didn't know better information to give me, that I couldn't have received early intervention, that I suffered that long, that my daughter was exposed for so long to a mom that wasn't well.
Her older daughter is being treated for depression. For Heidi Koss, who now has a loving relationship with both daughters, the whole experience has left lasting wounds.
I was very sad. I think I'm still sad. I still feel guilty that as a mom, I didn't feel love for my baby.
The grief, the pain, and the guilt broke up her marriage, she says. But one good thing came of it all. Koss's anger sent her back to school. She's now got a master's degree in family therapy, and she's counseling women with postpartum depression, so they'll have an easier time of it than she did. For NPR News, I'm Joanne Silberner.
I cannot understand this news in detail, but the abstract of this
You're
news
listening to
is
All Things
that
Considered from NPR News.
many women are suffering what of their mother suffering because of what their mother. To be mother is very stressful, and the mother feels the depression because of this. The doctor mentions that this symptom will be caused by the change of a hormone or something like that, and it is said in the news that a similar symptom is found in Africa. Here, okay, let's read the text. When Heidi Cross picks up her daughter from her middle school in a settled suburb, it's completely routine. They chat about the kickball and whether Brown ate the muffin her mother packed for a snack. It was 10 years ago when Brown was born. Things were anything but ordinary. Said Cass. I felt nothing toward my baby, said Cass. One day I woke up and I didn't care about her. Cass was going through postpartum depression, or PPD, thought to be caused by a combination of stress, genetic, and hormonal changes. Oh, it was a mistake. Oh, stress, genetic, and hormonal changes. It was her second time. She also had it after the birth of her first daughter, Aurora. Surveys show that 1 in 7 new mothers in the United States have a prolonged period of overwhelming depression or anxiety after giving birth. Oh, really? It is hard for me to tolerate such act. The mother should be generous. So, I cannot agree with the idea, even though it might be a mental illness. Anxiety after giving birth. PPD is different from baby blues, a term for the temporary sadness that can hit a woman right after birth for a few days or a few weeks. Really? Oh, this is very sad mental illness. This is sad for mother and of course for baby. I will not be tolerate. This is one of abuse. I think this is a kind of abuse, no? Ill treat, misuse, abuse. They treated him badly. On the brink of suicide. On the brink of suicide, Coast has those violent thoughts, and they drove her to attempt suicide. Her husband pulled her back from a she held her, and at one point she lined up a razor dose of pills. The only thing that kept her from suicide was her conviction that no one would love her baby as much as she did, and no one would take care of her as well. Her profound unhappiness was hard for her to admit at the time. I felt like admitting that I was struggling meant I was a bad mother, so kind of put on my best face and best foot forward and soldered it on, she says. She eventually went to her obstetrician, but he says there's nothing much he could do. Then Cost found a support group now known as the Postpartum Support International, and 17 months after Aurora was born, after Broadway was born, Cost got treatment, and while she still suffered symptoms, she says that with the help of the support group, she didn't feel so alone. Katerina Wisner, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh, who's been studying postpartum depression since 1985, says it's hard to get doctors interested in PPD. She says many are not trained for it, and insurance company often don't reimburse for it. Yeah, it's natural.